Hello everyone. In this video, we will solving for simple linear equation involving fraction. And before we solve for it, we first have to clear the fraction. Before I get started with example 1, I would like to review the step in solving for linear equation. First of all, we are going to simplify both sides of the equation. And we isolate the unknown by performing the same operation on both sides of the equation. Check the answer by substituting the solution into the original equation if required. In this particular video, I will probably perform the check for both sides of the equation, like I performed the step 3, in only one of the example. Alright, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to emphasize on the operation of fraction, and during the process I will remind everyone of how to use the calculator if you don't want to go through the process of working with fraction and you just want to go ahead and use the calculator. And the calculator that I'm going to use for this course is the Casio FX991MS. So this is the picture for the calculator, and you all have this calculator. Okay, so the key that I want to remind everyone is this key right here representing the fraction. And if you click the shift, you are dealing with the improper fraction. And if you just press this key, you are dealing with the mixed number. Alright, so let's get back to our example. So for the example, we are having this equation and we are solving for x in the following equations. Example 1, x subtract negative 6 over 7 equal negative 1 over 2. So I strongly believe that we leave everything in fraction to work with, and I don't recommend that you translate this or you convert this into decimal and then we go from there, because in solving for x, if it's given to us as fraction, in the end we should have fraction as the answer. And if we have to check the solution to see if both sides of the equation are the same, then we should work with the fraction. In this case, it's called the exact solution. Okay, so I am going to ask everyone to take a look at the negative sign for the fraction, which is negative 6, okay, and then the subtraction sign. Okay, so you can take this negative and you multiply with this subtraction sign. Okay, so in a way that this question could be written as this: x subtract negative 6 over 7 equal to negative half. So it's similar to that, except that the negative goes in front of the 6. Okay, so if you put the negative right here, then it's the same as you are writing your equation like this. So don't forget that it's just a notation, and then you subtract a negative fraction, it turns into a positive. So the first thing we do is we will make that into plus 6 over 7 equal negative half. Alright, so that's a few way of working with this type of the equation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clear the fraction first. So that means I will apply the same step like I have done before. Whatever I do on this side, I do the same thing on the other side of the equation. So let me fix this x first. Okay, so I am going to subtract 6 over 7 on both sides of the equation. Alright, so doing this, I cancel that. So I immediately isolate the x, right? So I isolate the x. So x is equal to negative half, subtract 6 over 7. So one thing you can do here is you can use your calculator to work with. So let me go to my calculator picture, and I will remind everyone how to perform this operation using the calculator. And then after that, I will go over the basic concept of the fraction as well. Subtracting or adding two fractions, we have to have the same common denominators. Okay, so we are going to use this calculator. I am going to remind everyone that you are going to concentrate on this key and this key. Okay, so the first thing we are going to do is you want to key in negative a half, right? So what you do is you are going to press this negative sign. Okay, so I'm going to press that negative sign. So I will have a negative. And then I press 1. Okay, so here's my 1. So I press the 1. So I will have negative 1 right on the screen. So it will be like this, negative 1, right on the screen. And then I press this key right here. So I press the key. It will give me that little symbol like this. Alright. Then I will press the 2. So I press 2. So then I have 2. Now I'm going to subtract. Okay. Subtract. That means you are going to press this key as subtract. And then I press 6. Okay, so it will give me the 6. And then I press this key again. This key right here. Alright, that key. So give me this little symbol. And then I put in 7. And then I have 7. And I press equal sign. So here's my equal sign. I press equal sign. And then you will see the number like this. You will see a mixed number. So the mixed number will be negative 1, that symbol. So I will put here negative 1, that symbol, 5, and that symbol 14. So this representing a mixed number of negative 1 and then 5 over 14. Okay, so this is a mixed number. So you can present with the answer like this, or if you don't want this in mixed number, you can press this key right here by pressing the shift key and then press that key. It will give you a fraction as improper. Okay, so in this case, it should be negative 19 over 14. So let's try that. So I will press the shift key. So let me clear this. Okay, so I clear my screen on my calculator. So then what I do is I press the shift key. Okay, with the shift key I will see an S. And then I press this key again, this key right here. So I press that. You see that it will give you negative 19 and that as the denominators. So negative 19 over 14. So you can use this calculator to work with your solving for the linear equation involving fraction, or you can just go through the process of finding common denominators and then perform the operation. And I think it's a good idea to review that. Alright, okay. So let's get back to our equation. So from my equation, I can tell everyone that my answer should be negative 19 over 14. So just leave that there for now. But let me remind everyone how to work with the common denominators. Okay, so now I have x equal to negative a half subtract 6 over 7. Okay, so working with common denominator, I know that the lowest common denominator for a half and 6 over 7 would be 2 and 7, so that would be 14. Okay, so then 14. Okay, so from 2 I get to 14 because I multiply 2 by 7. So I multiply 2 by 7 and I multiply 7 by 2. So that means I must do the same thing on top. Okay, so right here I must multiply this by 7 and I also multiply this by 2. So in the end, my answer would be negative 7 over 14 subtract 12 over 14. Okay, this 2 now will be negative 7 subtract 12 over 14, because when you add or subtract a fraction, you must have the common denominators, and then you just perform the step for the numerator. So in this case, my answer is negative 19 over 14. Exact same as I got that. Okay. Then if you want to do the check step, okay, so then if you want to check, okay, checking, I want to put my left hand side and my right hand side. So right hand side now is equal to negative half. Okay, so now left hand side is equal to x subtract negative 6 over 7. So then I need to write negative 19 over 14 subtract negative 6 over 7. So in this case, what I have, if I should have negative 19 over 14 plus 6 over 7, okay, perform the operation for this, what do I get? Okay, so I will have this as 14, okay, 12. Right? Okay, because you are multiply 7 by 2 to get to 14. That means you do the same thing on top. So in this case, what I have is I have got negative 19 plus 12 over 14. So in this case, I should have negative 7 over 14. And then reduce to the lowest term, I should have negative a half. So that equal to that. Therefore, left hand side is equal to the right hand side. Okay, so I've done everything that needed for this example. Okay, clear the fraction, perform the same operation on both sides, use the calculator to subtract this 2, or you can perform the normal step for the fractions, find common denominators, add or subtract the same the numerators, okay, leave the denominator the same, and then at the end you can check your solution. Okay, so let's continue with the next example. For the next two examples, I probably will skip the checking step because I think that you can always do this on your own. Alright, okay, so for the next example, okay, so I actually provide myself quite a lot of room on this paper, so I'm going to skip that. Alright, okay, so for the purpose of posting the video script for this, I am going to just write here. I just want to quickly continue on next page. Okay, just for the purpose of posting, save this document and then post it for everyone. Alright, so for this example, what you see is we get into a little bit more complicated fraction here. So the very first thing we are going to do is I want you to take this, multiply with that, and turn that into a plus. Okay, and then you can simplify this side of the equation to see what we have as the combine these two fractions, and then you can bring it to the other side. Okay, so we can start it with negative 3x plus 6 over 7. Okay, and add that with 5 over 3 equal to 7 over 4. So a few ways of solving for this type of fractional equation. Honestly, the one I show you here should be the simplest way. Okay, so then I will have negative 3x. Okay, adding this 2. If you use a calculator, okay, use a calculator, I would say it will be equal to 53 over 21. Okay, so I'm talking about calculator in this case. Just use a calculator to work with. All right. Okay. And then the next step is I see that now I need to simplify by subtract 53 over 21 for both sides of the equation. Okay, so I can tell everyone this is the simplest step, and you have your calculator with you. Okay, make sure you have your that powerful calculator Casio FX991MS. It works really well with the fraction and everything. So then we are having this as just follow the step, right? Follow the step of simplify how to solve for a simple linear equation. Whatever you do on this side of the equation, you do the exact same thing on this other side, involving the fraction as well. Like the fraction should not confuse us. Okay, the fraction should not confuse us. And there's another way of solving for this, but I can tell you this is the simplest way. And what I will do is I probably will perform that complicated way for everyone to see. And however, okay, you don't have to go to that complicated step because there are different types of fractional equation and some type of fractional equation that you can just have you could just apply the simple step, okay? And then for some equation, you must apply the complicated step, okay? So which will be our next lesson. The next lesson to this, sometimes you cannot just add a fraction to one side, add the other fraction on the other side, or in this case we subtract the fraction on both sides so that we can get rid of this, and then we can just go ahead and then perform the operation with these two fractions. Okay, so for some equation we cannot do this. We may have to apply other steps. Okay, so now I'm going to have negative 3x, okay, equal to, now you can go ahead and use your calculator and take 7 over 4 subtract 53 over 21 using the key that I asked everyone to work with the calculator. So in this case I end up with negative 65 over 84. Okay, so now this is also even more simple by thinking of solving for linear equation. So in this case, what do you have to get rid of? Because the key here is you need to isolate the x, right? Isolate the x. So isolate the x, that means you get rid of everything surrounding the x, and you have just x on one side. And how do we get rid of that? It's just apply the same operations on both sides of the equation. We keep it simple like that. Okay, there's so many language involving solving for a simple equation. They say, okay, I bring it to the other side, I turn it into a negative, I turn it to positive, but actually it's not like that. You are changing the operation. You are changing the operation. So if you are adding on this side, you bring it across the equal sign, you have to change it to an operation of subtraction, which is many students or many errors have come with the positive and the negative, especially over here. Okay, so if I'm talking about changing the sign, I'm not changing any sign here. I am changing the operation of this. So what is the operation here? I take negative 3, I multiply by x. So if I bring negative 3 over to the side of the equation, I am changing the operation. So that means the opposite operation of multiplication will turn into the division. Okay, that's all it is. You are not changing any sign. You are changing the operation of the operation. I really want to emphasize on that. All right, so now, so if we want to avoid all of that, and we just stick to the step that whatever we do on this side of the equation, we do the exact same thing on the other side. And our purpose is to isolate the x. That means you don't want negative 3 multiplied into x. You want to just have 1 times x or just x. So that means in order for you to get rid of this negative 3, you divide both sides by negative 3. Okay? So don't get confused with other languages. And if we stick with what we are doing here, okay, we just, whatever we do on one side of the equation, we do the exact same thing on the other side. Okay, so how do you choose that operation for this side of the equation to solve for x? Because you want to isolate x. If it's a addition, you subtract to get rid of it, right? If a multiplication, you divide to get rid of it. If it's a division, you multiply to get rid of it. In a way, it's also the opposite operation that you apply in this case. And then after times of doing so much of this, many of us thinking that, okay, I'm bring it over to the other side. I'm bring it over, but if you bring it over to the other side, that means you do the shortcut of what you are doing here. Okay, so you divide both sides by -3. You divide both sides by -3 because you want to isolate x. And then sometimes they don't want to say that. They don't want to say, I divide both sides by -3. I bring -3 over the other side. I divide it by 3. You multiply by 3, you bring it, you divide it by 3. You bring it, -3 multiplied by, you bring it over, you divide it by -3. You're not changing any sign in this case. Alright, so let's cancel this and that. And again, if we use calculator to work with, we will have the answer as x equal to 65 over 252. Alright, see, the calculator is quite powerful because we don't have to worry about common denominators. You don't have to worry about how do you perform this operation here, right? All you have to do is just key them into the calculator. So let me review to everyone how to key this into the calculator because the negative sign is very important. Okay, so let's go to our calculator and let me erase the previous example that I have done here. Okay, I just quickly show everyone how to divide with the negative. Okay, so very important. Okay, this here is our negative sign, and this is the operation of subtraction. I would like everyone to distinguish the difference between these two. Okay, so that is why this calculator is set up to have a negative, a special key for the negative. Okay, with the bracket around it is a special key to represent it as a negative number. This one is as a subtraction. So what we have to do is you are going to press this negative key. So then you have negative. Okay, you have negative. And then, okay, I'm using my calculator at the same time to make sure. Okay, then I key in 65. Okay, 65. And I press this key right here, this key. I press that key and it's give me this little thing. And then I am pressing my 84. Alright. Okay, and you probably ask me, how come you don't put a bracket in here? Okay, so it doesn't matter. Okay, it doesn't matter. Okay, this calculator will know that I am having a negative fraction. Okay, then what I do next is here is my division. So there's a division. So you put division, but this time you don't need a bracket because it's already specified this one as a negative. So I will put in -3. Okay, so then I will put division -3 and see if we get the number as 65 over 252 equal sign, and then it's exactly equal to that. So don't forget I'm using this calculator because most of you will be going into the program that requires this calculator. Okay, so it's good to get to know this calculator and work with it. It's very straightforward and it's actually the best calculator for fraction. Okay, so then that's what we have for this example. Okay, so now I'm going to skip the step of checking the solution. okay, because I only have like 6 minutes left, and I really want to cover the last example. Okay, I want to cover the last example, but um, I was telling everyone that we can work with the complicated stuff in order to solve for this as well. Okay, but however, I save it for the next lesson. The next lesson, sometimes we cannot apply this simpler step. We have to go with the complicated step of finding the common denominators, finding equivalent fractions, and then only add or subtract the numerators. Okay? Then you leave the denominator alone, and then you have to get rid of the denominators after. So that will be another step. But for me, solving for equation like this, simplest way is to follow the step for the solving for linear equation. Whatever you do on this side of the equation, you do the exact same thing on the other side. Just keep it simple like that. And before you can apply that, you simplify this side of the equation, okay? Because you can see that you can clear most of the fraction here before you decided to, now I'm going to start with isolating the x, okay? So again, the same thing for here, okay? So I'm going to put continue on next page. This is for the purpose of posting this document for everyone after. Okay, so now this example, you can see that we are dealing with uh, an absolute values right here. You see it here is the normal bracket represented. I'm adding a negative fraction, but this one I multiply this with an absolute value. You see it's quite distinguishable between the bracket and the absolute values. So what is the absolute values? Absolute values is telling me that if it's a negative, I take the absolute values, absolute symbol away, and I turn it into a positive. So it's very simple as that. So now let's negative 5 over 9x. Okay, subtract 4 over 5. Okay, so adding a negative fraction turn into just subtracting that fraction. And then I just take negative 7, I time that with positive 3 over 14. You see, I change it into a normal bracket because I multiply this with a positive fraction now. So if you use calculator, okay, use calculator, when you multiply this 2, you should have the answer as, okay, this as negative 3 over 2. Okay, you can go ahead and use a calculator, take negative 7 times 3 over 14, you will end up with negative 3 over 2. And now I am going to subtract this on both sides. No, I mean I add this on both sides. Okay, so that, excuse me, I just look at the time and I only have like 2 minutes left. So that's why I'm kind of rushed. Okay, so when I rush, that is the problem. Okay, so then we are having, okay, and then this side will equal to negative 7 over 10. Okay, so you just use calculator. All right, just use calculator. Adding that to, now again, I am going to ask everyone to do this. I will divide this by negative 5 over 9. Okay, and then on the other side, I do the exact same thing. Yeah, whatever I do on this side, I do the exact same thing on the other side. So then this cancel with that. I just have x left. And on the other side, you are dividing two negative fractions. If you use your calculator, your answer should be 63 over 50. All right. Okay. So the purpose of this exercise and this lesson is to ask everyone just to perform the simple step of solving for linear equation. That means you clear all the fraction and then you follow the step, like I just perform whatever I need to do to get rid of the whatever surrounding the x. Adding, then adding to the other side. Divide, then divide everything to the other side. Alright, I have plenty of exercise for everyone to work on, so please work